Hello students, so today we will be starting with a new topic, the new topic named as security in the contemporary world. So we will be understanding about security and what are the characteristics of the security in the contemporary world. You see, this chapter is present in the class 12 book of political science, and today we will be knowing more about the security perspective of the international world. Now, what is security? At its most basic, security implies freedom from threats. Human existence and the life of a country are full of threats. Every time a person steps out of his or her home, there is some degree of threat to their existence. Now, here, what do you mean by security? Security means freedom from threats, whatever the harmful threats we are getting. So, freedom from those harmful threats is known as security. Now, human existence, you see, we human, we are existing in this world and we are full of threats, we are in danger. So, as a result, each and every human being wants security. And on the other hand, every time whenever an individual steps out of their home, there are dangers, there are threats, which means we have to protect ourselves, and for that reason only security is very much important. Those who study security therefore generally say that only those things that threaten core values should be regarded as being of interest in discussions of security. Now here we are understanding about the term core values. Now if the core values are being affected, which means the things that are important, that are very much important for the society, for our country, those core values must be secured. These core values must be protected. So as a result, this is the meaning of security here. The core values come, and also on the other hand, if there is threatening to the core values, if there is danger to the core values, then only there comes the interest of the security, and we must study the interests of the security. Security relates only to the extremely dangerous threats that could so endanger core values that those values would be damaged beyond repair if we did not do something to deal with the situation. Now, here security relates only to the extremely dangerous threats. Security is related to the extremely dangerous threats and that could endanger core values. Now, you see, security, why do we study security? So that we can understand the core values of a society, the core values of the society and the threats that are being threatened to the core values first of all. Also on the other hand, if those threats are endangering core values, then it is very important to study the security. Also on the other hand, if the security is beyond the repair, you can see that if the threaten is beyond the repair, if the threatening is coming beyond the level, during that time only security becomes very much important and becomes the number one priority. So as a result, security is important for those things which actually affects our core values. Now here, as we have come into this page, so our academy is opening new courses for arts and commerce students, and if you want to know about the courses, then you can join the official WhatsApp group. To join the official WhatsApp group, you can click on the link in the description section itself. In the official WhatsApp group, you will be knowing the daily class updates, important announcements, course details and notification, also exam alerts and study material. So after joining the WhatsApp group only, you will be doing all this. And if you want to know more of the courses, then you can contact us in this number 86383911721. Internal notions of security. Now, what are the internal notions of security? You see, in the traditional conception of security, the greatest danger to a country is from military threats. The source of this danger is another country, by which threatening military action endangers the core values of sovereignty, independency, and territorial integrity. Military action also endangers the life of ordinary citizens. Now, here came the term military action, the military threats. You see, military threats is the most dangerous effect to the people. They are the most dangerous effect to the people, and a person must be secured from the military threats first of all. And second of all, here you see the threatening military action. The threatening military action is actually affecting the core values of our country. How? Through the effect of sovereignty, through the effect of independency, also on the other hand through the territorial integrity. Which means if our country is affected by the military action, so there must be a security. Also, military action also endangers the life of ordinary citizens. Now, military action actually endangers the life of ordinary citizens. There will be military action. The military will be protecting us, but the ordinary people are being affected in that case. You see, military threats is one of the example which actually threatens the security of an individual. In responding to the threat of war, government has three basic choices: to surrender to prevent the other side from attacking by promising the raise of costs of war to an unacceptable level, and to defend itself when war actually breaks out so as to deny the attacking country its objective and to turn back or defeat the attacking forces altogether. Now, here are the three basic choices when there is war. Here are the three basic choices when there is war. Now, what are the important choices? First of all, to surrender. First comes to surrender to prevent the other side from attacking. To prevent the other side from attacking by promising some of the vows, by promising some of the mutual rights, you can say. First comes the surrender, and second comes to prevent the other side from attacking by promising the raise of cost of war to an unacceptable level. Now you see, if to prevent the other country from doing the war or from attacking, during that time the military objects, you can say, or you can say the war becomes very much costly. The war becomes very much costly. As a result, there is the increase in the price level at an unacceptable level. There is the increase in the price level at an unacceptable level, which actually carries on to inflation. There is inflation problem in the country if there is war. Also, on the other hand, to defend itself when war actually breaks out. Now, the third comes to defend itself when war actually breaks out. Now, some of the non-aligned countries are there who don't want to participate in the war. So they are known to be defending themselves, that they are actually not interested in the war. So as a result, they deny the attacking country its objective and turn back to defeat attacking forces altogether. Now, they are actually denying the attacking country. They are actually denying the attacking country and then actually turn back with the other country who is attacking. Now, which means they will be befriending with those countries who are attacking. So as a result, which means deny. First comes the surrender. Second comes to prevent the country from attacking. To prevent the country from attacking by promising to increase the cost of the war, and then to defend itself from the war, and then to defend itself from the war. These are the three choices by the government itself during the war. Also, on the other hand, traditional security policy has a third component called balance of power. Now, this is one of the most important topic comes the balance of power. Now, what do you mean by the balance of the power? You see, when countries look around them, they see some countries are bigger and stronger. This country is a powerful sign that at some point in the future, it may choose to be aggressive. Now, balance of power. Some of the countries are there who are managing the power. How? They will be actually befriending the other powerful countries, or if they see those powerful countries, the most amplified countries, that time they will be protecting themselves from those countries, which means they will be thinking that those countries may come for the war, which means they may defend themselves, or they may protect themselves, or they may increase the security of those countries. Like you see, there are very powerful countries. There are much more powerful countries. There are much more powerful countries who are actually may go for the war, which may come for the war. So as a result, those those things are known to be as the balance of the power. Here you see the balance of the power actually looks around those countries which are very much powerful of its kind. So as a result, those countries may go for the war, and we need to protect or increase our security so that those war doesn't affect those countries. So this is known as the balance of power, which means it is anticipating the war. It is anticipating the war, or they are thinking about the future that the war may happen, or those countries may go for the war. So this is balance of power. Here, governments are therefore very sensitive to the balance of power between their country and other countries. They do work hard to maintain a favorable balance of power with other countries. Now, you see, if I talk about the government, so government are very much sensitive to the balance of power. They are very sensitive to the balance of power between their countries and other countries. Now, you see, if I talk about both the countries must actually befriending themselves so that they can prevent war, first of all. And government is very much sensitive to the balance of power. Also, on the other hand, they do work hard to maintain a favorable balance of power with other countries. A good part of maintaining a balance of power is to build one's military power. Very, very important. Now, how a country will be increasing its security, and how they will be maintaining the balance of power with the help of increasing the military power. With the help of building one's military power, only there will be balance of power. Also, the fourth component is alliance building. The fourth component is alliance building. An alliance is a coalition of states that coordinate their action to defend against military power attack. Most alliances are formalized in written treaties. Now, the fourth component is alliance building. You see, if I talk about alliance is a coalition of both the countries or the two countries or among the countries. This is known as an alliance. So the alliance states actually coordinate their action to defend against military power. So the alliance state both stand up with each other so that they can defend themselves from the military attack or from the military power. They will be aligning with each other so that they can protect themselves. Also, on the other hand, most alliances are formalized in written treaties. Now, here comes the written treaties. Now, most of the alliances are there who are bonded by the written treaties. They are bonded by the written treaties, and countries form alliance to increase their effective power relative to another country or alliance. Now, countries form alliance. Why they form alliance? So that their power can be effective. They form alliance so that their power can be effective and relative to the another country, which means there will be two countries who will be aligning with each other so that they can become more powerful in comparison to the other country. And this actually comes on the basis of the national interest. Those comes on the basis of the national interest and can change when national interests change. Yes, they may change also. You see why alliances are formed? They are formed on the basis of national interest and they may change according to the national interests. In world politics, there is no acknowledged central authority that stands above everyone else. Within a country, the threat of violence is regulated by an acknowledged central authority, the government. Now, within a country, the threat of violence is regulated. You see, now if there is war within a country, that can be actually be secured by the government itself. There is one regulated institute, that is the government. The government may control the internal war, but the government has to protect the external war. However, presently constituted, the UN is a creation of its member and has authority that obeys it according to the members as allowed. Now, however, presently constituted, the UN is a creation of member. You see, United Nations, this is an institute. It is a creation of its member and has an authority that obeys it according to the members as allowed. Now, if there is war, the UN will actually not be participating in this war or will not be helping because it is a member institute. All the members will be discussing other things rather than protecting from the war. Or you can see, UN is a creation of its member and has authority according what the members are allowed to obey, which means whatever the members of the UN will be telling, it has to be obeyed. So as a result, here you see, if I talk about the war becomes a very dangerous effect. The war becomes a very dangerous effect. As a result, sometimes the government also fails in controlling the war. The internal war can be controlled by the government, but the external war becomes very dangerous for the common people. Now here we will be understanding about the external notion of security. As we have known about the internal notion of security, here we will be knowing about the term the external notion of security. Now, the period after the Second World War was the Cold War, in which the US-led Western Alliance faced the Soviet-led Communist Alliance. Above all, the two alliances feared a military attack from each other. Very, very important, the period from the Second World War. You see, after the period from the Second World War, there came the Cold War. So, the Cold War actually happened between two powerful countries. The Cold War happened between two powerful countries that led Western Alliance face the Soviet. Now here the Western Alliance come. During that time, the Western Alliance was facing the Soviet. So as a result, there was a threat of military action. There was a threat of a military action. And also you see, if I talk about the Cold War, there was the coming of the Communist Alliance. There was the coming of the Communist Alliance as well. Here came the Western Alliance and here came the Communist Alliance. Now, the Communist Alliance is the example of the Soviet Union. So, above all, the two alliances feared a military attack from each other. Some European powers continued to worry about violence in their colonies from colonized people who wanted independence. So during that time, what had happened? You see, there was Western Alliance, there was Communist Alliance. Now, Soviet Union is the example of the Communist Alliance, and here the Western countries comes, the United States of America. So during that time, most of the countries were colonized during that time. They were under some other countries. So they feared that if due to the Cold War, if the colonized countries goes for the independence, if they strike for the independence, then what will happen? So there will be multiple wars. So for the Cold War also, most of the countries got independency during that time. Our country got independence in the year 1947, but after 1947, when there was Cold War, after the Cold War also, most of the countries haven't got independency. That time most of the countries was under colonialism. So as a result, after the Cold War also, most of the country got independency. Now here most of the alliances, if I talk about the Western Alliance and the Communist Alliance, so as a result, other countries were also fearing that if their colonized countries strike for the independency, then what will happen? And no people can actually manage the multiple wars. Also, as the colonies became free from the 1940 onwards, their security concerns were often similar to that of the European powers became members of the Cold War alliances. Now, after what had happened after 1940s, most of the colonies became free. Most of the countries became free from colonialism. Most of the countries became free from colonialism. So as a result, what had happened? They wanted security. They wanted security as that of European powers. They wanted security as that of European powers, and they have formed the Cold War alliance. Yes, they have formed the Cold War alliance during that time, just because for the upgrading of the security. The Cold War between the two superpowers was responsible for approximately one-third of all wars in the post-Second World War period. Very, very important. After the Cold War that broke out between the two powerful countries, that is the United States of America and the Soviet Union, what had happened? There was one-third of the all wars coming. One-third of all the wars was coming after the Cold War, which means other wars also started happening after the post Second World War. After the post Second World War, there came the Cold War, and other war was also coming in the line just because for the Cold War. Which means for the Cold War, only one-third of the war was responsible just because for the Cold War. Just as the European colonial powers feared violence in the colonies, some colonial people feared after independence that they might be attacked by their former colonial rulers in Europe. They had to prepare, therefore, to defend themselves against their imperial war. Now, here came the European colonial powers. The European colonial powers actually feared violence. The European colonial powers actually feared violence. Now, why they feared violence? Just because the colonial people feared that after independence, they might be attacked by their former colonial rulers. Now, those were newly independent countries. The newly independent countries actually feared that they might be again controlled by the other country. They might be coming under the former colonial rulers. So they feared. After the Cold War, there was maximum fear to the people, which means the other country was also fearing from their former colonial rulers. They became independent country after so much of hard work, after so much of struggle. They became an independent country. But after the Cold War, if again the former colonial rulers control them, then what will happen? So they were actually very much serious about their own security, just like the European powers. They had to prepare, therefore, to defend themselves against an imperial war. During that time, most of the country was under imperialism. Most of the countries were imperialism, and newly independent countries came into existence. But after the Cold War, there was a fear. If the former colonial rulers come and control those countries, and those countries again comes under the colonialism. So there was a fear. After the Cold War only, they are starting a lot of fear during that time. Now, the security challenges facing the newly independent countries of Asia and Africa were different from the challenges in Europe in two ways. For one thing, the new countries faced the prospects of military conflict with neighboring countries. For another, they had to worry about internal military conflict. These countries faced threats not only from outside their borders, mostly from neighbors, but also from within. Now, here comes the security challenges facing the newly independent countries of Asia and Africa. Here you see, here comes the security challenges. The security challenges of the independent countries of Asia and Africa are very much different from the European countries. The European countries has different security challenges, and the Asia and African countries have the different security challenges. Also, for one thing, the new countries face the prospect of military conflict. Now, there was military conflict. One prospect among the countries was the military conflict. Military conflict was much in existence during that time. Also, for another, they had to worry about internal military conflict. Now you see, here the military conflict comes, and here also comes the internal military conflict. Now the internal military conflict was also the subject. These countries face threats not only from the outside borders, mostly from neighbors, but also from within. Now, some of the countries, if I talk about the European countries, they are facing threats from the outside world, from the outside countries, but also they are facing the threats from within, which means internal wars are also there. Many newly independent countries came to fear their neighbors even more than they feared the US or Soviet Union or the former colonial powers. They quarreled over borders and territories or control of people and population and all of this simultaneously. Now the newly independent countries, now what had happened, the newly independent countries were actually fearing their neighboring countries. They are not fearing the United States of America or the Soviet Union. But now the newly independent countries are fearing their neighboring countries. So as a result, there are internal wars, there are internal quarrels. Now what are those internal quarrels? First comes the population expansion, and here comes the territorial control. The territorial control comes, and here the population expansion also comes. Also on the other hand, here comes the quarrel over the borders. Now slowly there are coming the internal wars as well within the country. So as a result, you see, Cold War was among United States of America and Soviet Union, but the other countries are also being affected during that time. Internally, the new states worried about threats from separatist movements which wanted to form independent countries. Sometimes the external and internal threats merge. Internal wars now make up more than 95% of all armed conflicts fought anywhere in the world. Between 1946 and 1991, there was 12-fold rise in the number of civil wars. Now here the third point you see, this is one of the most important point I will say. Internally, the new states worried about the threats from separatist movement. Now, here the coming of the new states, the new state feared about the separatist movement. Now what are the separatist movement? Which means those people who wanted their own state, who wanted their own country. So those are the separatist movement which are being formed like an alliance, which are being formed by the member countries itself, or you can say not the member countries, by the member people itself, which means those separatist movement people wanted their own independent state. So as a result, the newly state was very much fearing about the separatist movement. Also on the other hand, sometimes the external internal threats. Now here the external threats are there, the internal threats are there, they are actually merging. You see, internal threats are actually coming into existence, but the external threats are also adding up. So as a result, the common people are facing more problems. Now here internal wars. Actually, it has been said according to the report that internal wars are actually creating 95%. 95% are there of the internal war in comparison to the external war. And also, most of the armed conflict fought anywhere in the world. Now between 1946 and 1991, there was 12-fold rise in the number of civil war. Now in the year between 1946 and 1991, there was more civil war. There was an increase, rapid fold increase in the civil war during the year 1946 and 1991, which means between 1946 and 1991, there was much more civil war. There was 12-fold increase in the civil war during that time, during that period, you can say after the post-Second World War. Also, the greatest jump is in 200 years, which means you see, before 200 years also there was not much war. There was not much war, but after 1946 to 1991, there was much more war, which means the internal war is there, the external war is there. During that time, there was much more newly independent state. Newly independent state was coming into existence. Also, result there were independent countries as well, and most of the countries were getting out of colonialism. So, as a result, war will be there, and during that period, war was very much common. So today we have understood about the terms of security, that what do you mean by security, about the internal notion of the security and the external notion of the security. So as we have come into this page, our academy is opening new courses for arts and commerce students. And if you want to know more regarding the courses, then you can join the official WhatsApp group. In the official WhatsApp group, you will be knowing the daily class updates, important announcement, course details and notification, exam alerts and study maps. To join the official WhatsApp group, you can click the link on the description section. On the description section itself, you will be finding the link. After joining the official WhatsApp group, you will be knowing more about our courses. And if you want to know more, then you can contact us in this number 8638391721. And thank you for watching my video.